Personal Story segment tonight, Congressman Paul Ryan under fire for speaking bluntly about poverty.
We have got this tailspin of culture in our inner cities in particular, of men not working, and just generations of men not even thinking about working or learning the value and the culture of work. And so there's a real culture problem here that has to be dealt with.
Now, after hearing that, Congresswoman Barbara Lee released a statement pretty much calling Mr. Ryan a racist and saying his words, quote, cannot be tolerated. Joining us now from Washington is Congressman Ryan. So I understand you had a phone call with Ms. Lee. How did that go?
Well, I've known Barbara for many years. Look, there was nothing racial whatsoever in what I said. And if you listen to the full context of all of my remarks, that's pretty clear. So what I'd like to do, and I mentioned this, is let's get beyond throwing baseless charges at people. Let's not impugn people's motives or characters, and let's have a real conversation about what we really need to do to truly fight poverty in America. If the status quo was working so well, then we wouldn't have to do that. It's not.
All right,
we have the highest poverty rates in a generation. And so we should have a conversation about addressing these root causes of poverty and the problems that are facing poverty without throwing names at each other.
Okay, did Congressman Lee apologize? Congresswoman Lee apologize to you?
No, but look, Barbara and I have known each other for many years, and look, I just wanted to clarify the point that I've been making.
But what is she? How did she respond?
She does not believe. She does not believe that I have these views. She knows me well.
Then
and
why
she
did she
knows
say you
that
did?
I don't have a racist bone in my body.
Then why did she imply you did?
Well, you'd have to ask Barbara that. But
did
the
you
point
ask
I'm making,
her?
Bill,
did you ask her?
Yeah, I made it very clear that what I said had nothing to do with race
whatsoever.
Are
you mad at her?
No, I'm not mad at her.
I would be.
I'm a big boy. I understand that if you challenge the status quo, that if you get into these issues, sometimes you'll be misinterpreted. But also, I really believe we got to have a real conversation about how to fix these things without throwing these charges at people.
With all due respect to you, because I think you're a good man, they don't want a conversation. They don't want to solve the problem. These race hustlers make a big living, and they get voted into office by portraying their constituents as victims. And it's all your fault, and it's my fault. It's the rich people's fault. It's the Republicans' fault. It's everybody's fault except what's going on. And what's going on, as you know, is a dissolution of the family. And you don't have proper supervision of children, and they grow up with no skills, and they can't read and speak, and they have tattoos on their neck, and they can't compete in a marketplace. And that's what's going on. But if you say that, you're a racist. So no matter what you say, Congressman, you're going to be branded because the race hustlers don't want to solve the problem. How's that?
Well, look, here's what I want to do. I want to solve the problem, and I want to talk about how to solve the problem. Here's the issue, Bill. If it was working so well, I just put out a study that said we spend about $800 billion a year on about 100 different government programs to fight poverty, and it's not working. So why don't we, instead of looking at the inputs, how much money we throw at these programs, concentrate on outcomes? What does it take to get people out of poverty? And here's another idea. Why don't we go listen to people in poverty? Why don't we go visit with the poor and see what's working, what's not? And if you go do that, as I've been doing all year long, you will find tremendously impressive and inspiring stories about people successfully fighting poverty and getting themselves out of it. So there's a lot we can learn instead of just handing ideas down from Washington. That's point number one. Point number two is we've got to focus on outcomes, not on inputs, not on servicing poverty, but on solving poverty. And that, to me, is the mindset that's going to have to change. And when you question that status quo, it's going to upset some people, but we need to question that status quo if we're actually going to solve this problem.
Give me the big one, not the most important, but one very vital thing that the federal government can do, specifically now, not philosophically, specifically, to alleviate poverty. One very important thing that you guys could do.
Well, job training, skills. That's a big deal. We have a bill that we've passed out of the House to address this skills gap so people who are stuck and down and out in life can get the skills they need to get a good career.
So how would that work? Tell us how that would work.
Well, there are about 49 different job training programs spread across 9 different government agencies, much of which we don't even measure whether they work or not. And we passed a bill already in the House consolidating these programs, sending them back to the states so that people can go get a scholarship, a voucher, and get training at a community college, at a technical college, at an employer who qualifies to get a skill they need, to get a job they want, to get a career that can get them out of poverty. The Earned Income Tax Credit. That is an idea that came from the right in the first place, which makes it pay to work. The point I was making in that interview, one of the points, is we've elected all these barriers to work from the government. Obamacare, in and of itself, it's knocking the 40-hour work week down to 29 hours. That doesn't help get people out of poverty. The CBO is telling us the equivalent of 2.5 million jobs will not be worked by the end of the decade as a result of Obamacare, and it's disincentives to work. That hurts the poor the most. So my point is, remove these barriers to work, and you'll get a lot of people back into the workforce.
One last question, 30 seconds. Who would oppose the job training bill? Nobody would oppose that, would they?
Harry Reid won't even let us have a vote on it in the House, in the Senate, excuse me.
Why won't he put it up?
It's a good question, because we're taking on the status quo. There are a lot of bureaucracies.
All right, so he wants to keep the chaos across the 9 different agencies instead of consolidating, so the government can remain as big as it is.
Yes, and we want to consolidate and get this aid back to people in our communities so they can get the skills they need to get out of poverty.
All right, Congressman, thanks very much. We appreciate it.